Well, it's official. Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. Now, of course, we are 100% celebrating here at Principled Politics. We are over the moon about this. We totally believe that this is the best direction for the country to be heading in. And today we are going to break down and cover everything that happened last night. I stayed up all the way through it, watched all the coverage, went through all the polling, the maps, and saw exactly how everything shook out. And so we're going to spend some time today, and we're just going to break down exactly what happened last night and what this means for the future of our country and what it means for the future of the legacy media and the left. So welcome to Principled Politics, and today we are going to joyfully cut through the commentary. Well, yes, you heard me correctly. Donald Trump is officially the 47th president. There's still some votes tallying up. Everything's kind of shaking out as far as the data goes, but it was declared late in last night, towards midnight here in Arizona time, that Donald Trump would be and is the projected winner of the 2024 presidential race. Looks like he's slated to end somewhere around the 300 mark, which was the most desirable outcome. I know me and a lot of other pundits have said that if this was a lot closer and if it did come down to the wire, a 268, 270, 268, 280, whatever, in that margin of winning, let's say Harris won, slightly and Trump got to 268 or vice versa, we knew that it would be a long, drawn out process and could potentially bring in a plethora of lawsuits and different things to really halt this process. But we did not see that here at all. Looking at the map here, I'm actually going to pull up the map and we're going to actually take a look at it here. So let's take a look at this map. So taking a look at the map here, as you guys can see, they have Trump right now at 292 and Kamala Harris at 224. And we can see right here, if we look in actually and zoom in right here, in this area right here, this was the crucial area in which Trump needed to thrive, and he did exactly that. Wisconsin, 99% reported, and Trump pulled out with the victory there. All these three states right here were the blue wall states that Trump needed to take at least one of them, and he absolutely won in a landslide victory and took all three. And so that was a major victory for Donald Trump here. He took Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. He also took the other battleground states of Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona. I'm ashamed to say that Arizona, the state where I reside, is absolutely a disaster heap. They are by far taking the longest to get their reporting of their votes out, which is absolutely pathetic. Me and my wife voted early. Over 50% of the registered voters voted early. And so the fact that they couldn't get the other percentile counted, shout out to Florida. Florida is an amazing state. Florida was able to actually be the first one to have everything counted. The moment the polls closed, we already knew who the projected winner would be. And so it's just a shame that Arizona and these other states are a disgrace in that way. But with that being said, this is what the map is looking like right now. And so taking a moment, just kind of transitioning back here and talking about kind of how things went down. I think everybody could say on the Republican side that there was a cautious optimism going into the night. I was optimistic, but, I was wary of my optimism, hoping that it wasn't just my bubble, my circle, speaking into that. But at the end of the day, we clearly saw a demographic shift and a political realignment with this election happening. Kamala Harris ran a campaign of vibes. The Democratic Party thought they could take someone who had never experienced success in a major campaign before and put them on the national stage and pump life into them and just expect them to come out the victor, which clearly did not happen. And because of that, the left at this point is turning to a new sort of low. What I mean by that is the fact that the left now is at a point where they have no one left to blame except for you, me, and the American people. Donald Trump won, and it is projected that he'll win. We'll return to the map here. It is projected that Donald Trump is going to win the popular vote for this race. It is being reported that he will win around 51, 52% of the popular vote. And so they can't blame the electoral college system. They can't blame, COVID, anything funny like that. They can't blame anything of that sort. And so instead of blaming their own incompetence, instead of blaming the fact that they chose Kamala Harris, who was by far the worst candidate, instead of blaming the fact that they didn't hold a primary and allow other contestants to vow for the position and the nominee, they are only left with one choice. Because Donald Trump won the popular vote, he won the electoral college. It is very clear that this is what the American people want. And so they're left with no choice but to blame the American people for this and to accuse the American people of being Nazi, fascist, and wanting a dictatorship. And the American people want to overthrow America, essentially. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about how this happened. How did Donald Trump win? Well, first and foremost, Donald Trump did a great job. I know he was slow off his feet originally campaigning against Kamala Harris. Once the transition took place, I think Trump had a hard time getting his feet and finding out what to do with her because, it was just unprecedented to have a candidate be swapped out. Joe Biden got knocked out in the debate, and for him to be just tossed to the side was something that had never happened before. And so Donald Trump kind of was getting his grounding, but once he got his grounding and they got their messaging right, they were able to, pursue the message of radicalism and emphasizing that Kamala Harris has been the administration for the past 4 years. And the reality needs to be stated that Kamala Harris has and always will be just a surrogate and a head on the political machine of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were basically just Obama 2.0 and Obama 3.0 if she would have gotten elected. And I think that this is a good thing for the Democratic Party. I truly do. I think that this is a wake-up call that they actually need to, instead of running off of the coalition of race minorities and identity politics, it's time for them to actually find candidates who have coherent thoughts and ideas and aren't simply just running off of the fact that I'm a black woman or, I'm a black man or anything of that sort, and actually be able to find someone who has can put together and string together a cohesive ideology that is actually influential in any way, shape, or form. So, taking a look here, we're going to transition here. I want to go back to the map and spend a little more time here looking at kind of how things shook out, not only for the presidential race. Obviously, we can see here Donald Trump won those key states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. But another major outcome of this election happens to be the Senate. As we can see here, the GOP is projected to also win the Senate. At this point, it looks like we have Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick, amazing candidate. Looks like he's going strong, 97% reporting, and it looks like he has that margin to win. Ohio, Bernie Moreno is going to win that seat. Michigan and Wisconsin looks like just slightly, are going to be edged out. It's too close to tell yet, but slightly going to be edged out. But even with that, at this point, it looks like there is a potential for, at the end of the day, right, with the 52 seats, they have the majority, but there is potential for a 53-seat majority in the Senate, which gives Trump, which is good for Trump in the sense that now that he's elected and now that he is going to be the nominee, having the Senate is a very, very big deal. Not having someone, let's say this, right? Worst case scenario, if Donald Trump won the presidency, but the Democrats won the Senate and the House, there you already know that he'd be impeached day one. It would be over. They would try and overthrow that. Transitioning here to the House typically speaking, usually follows very closely with the White House. So the House of Representatives usually follows very closely with the presidential election, and the GOP is on track here to gain a majority in the House, hopefully retaining that and, keeping Mike Johnson as the speaker and all those great things. With that, where does that leave us? That means that Donald Trump is now the 47th president. He beat all odds, the greatest comeback story in political history. He has a Senate majority secured, and he is on his way to potentially have a House majority. This is the opportunity that Republicans have been waiting for to actually make change, to enforce good policy, and to bring back reason and sanity to America. And so, transitioning back here, I wanted us to take some time and just revel in the joy of this victory. And then after that, we can go into a little bit more of the diagnosis of how Trump did it and why Kamala Harris lost and what this means for the future of our country. But before we do that, I want to take some time and I want to play some clips and have us just really, really soak in the leftist tears. I really want to give us the opportunity to just take it all in, to enjoy the fact that the left is absolutely melting down and that they are flailing around. And like I said, they are kicking at you, the American people, and calling all the American people fascist, calling the American people losers, and just completely going against all of America right now. And it goes to show you the disdain that the legacy media has for you. They don't care about you. They just care about the system and the political parties that they represent and the hacks that they are. So let's take a look here. We'll transition over and take a look at some of these clips. So here's the first moment. We'll tune into our friends at the MSNBC. These political hacks, it brings no greater joy to my soul than to see them absolutely crushed by the weight of a Donald Trump victory. So let's take a look here. We're going to transition. This was the moment that Jen Psaki, former press secretary of Joe Biden, now just, working at MSNBC, nothing fishy about that, having someone from a political administration, totally unbiased. Anyways, having her announce that Donald Trump is officially won the election. So we'll take a look at that moment.
NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country. And here's what might be the hardest part to hear, but we have to talk about and we have to say, and it is a hard part to digest for all of us. But we have to be honest about what we saw in this election. Donald Trump was elected by expanding his support over a number of key groups that we've been digging into this all night tonight as we anticipated where this was headed. And I know we're going to dig into it throughout the course of the day today. And there will be a lot of time spent on how and why he won and what this will mean for the country over the next 4 years and beyond. But in this moment, it's also important to remember that our democracy is not built around one person or one job. And I have every confidence that pro-democracy forces in this country will continue to stand up and make their voices heard. That's what we saw after 2016 as well. Some of those voices will be governors, some of them will be elected officials, some will be institutions and organizations standing up for rights and standing up for women's bodily autonomy and standing up for our climate. Some will be citizens, and many of you sitting at home right now digesting this news right now, some of them will be you. I wish I had better news for my daughter later this morning. I mean, I know Tim Miller and I were talking about this earlier when she...
All right, we could stop it there. So totally went on an unhinged rant, just completely just making stuff up, just going out of her way to just rant about all types of nonsense, and it's just funny, the legacy media wonders why. I don't know if they do wonder this, but, they try and figure out why they are not trusted by, the majority of Americans, why majority of Americans think that, the liberal media, legacy media has such this bias. I mean, listen to that rant in and of itself. Okay, you go on a 6-7 minute, it went on for more than that. This rant, instead of just giving the news, you go on this rant, just unhinged rant, just talking about all these lies and spewing all this nonsense. And then you wonder why nobody takes you seriously. So those are our friends at MSNBC having a complete and utter meltdown. Another clip here from MSNBC. Here's Rachel Maddow being forced to have to report and get the words out that Trump is projected to win in a landslide. So here is Rachel Maddow reporting on that.
NBC News has a projection to make in the presidential contest in the swing state of Pennsylvania. NBC News now projects that that presidential contest has been won by Donald Trump. Now, I believe that means that we are at a 266 electoral vote count for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris had 194 electoral votes. So to be clear here, this is the third of the 7 major swing states that have been called. But Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, as those 3 states, presents an almost unless there's it presents an insurmountable future here for Kamala Harris and for the Democratic ticket.
So there you have it, an insurmountable, and you can just see her just stuttering to get her words out. She literally can't believe that Kamala Harris didn't win. It's just crazy how they are just so ignorant to the fact that they were not good, that they ran a poor candidate, that they didn't see this coming. It's just it's shocking, to say the least, how ignorant they are. So, taking a look at this, here's some more meltdowns that we can see here. Here's another MSNBC one. Then we'll transition from MSNBC after this. This is their reaction with Morning Joe and all these great people. Here's their meltdown in reaction towards Donald Trump becoming president.
We still have an electorate, 70 million plus, that will be voting for a man who said he was going to assassinate for treason the chairman of the Joint Chiefs because he didn't support him on January the 6th, who has said just in recent days he was going to execute Liz Cheney with a firing squad, 9 guns pointed and shooting at her face. A man who has said that he was going to shut down CBS because he didn't like how they edited an interview. A man who said he was going to be a dictator from day one. A man who said he was going to terminate the Constitution. A man who said he was going to use the army and he was going to use the National Guard on his political opponents. I literally could go on all day. And yet you talk to Trump voters and they'll go, he didn't say that. Wait, now I didn't hear him. And then you say, well, here's the quote. And then they'll go, yeah, he didn't mean that. So there's something far more long-lasting than just Donald Trump, the candidate. There is a sort of Russian embrace of disinformation, a radical devaluing of truth over the last 9 to 10 years, and a complete ignorance on civics and what the term Madisonian democracy even means, what checks and balances even means, what judicial review even means, what the rule of law even means. How do we as a nation, even post-Trump, How do we reach those Americans who apparently didn't go to civics class, apparently didn't learn the basics of this Constitution, and have just been overwhelmed with disinformation over the past 9 years?
So there you have it. It is all about disinformation. Morning Joe blames everything on disinformation. You know, Trump voters voted for him. 70 million Americans voted for him due to the fact that it's just all disinformation. They've been fed lies. And it's ironic, as he says that, he's literally spewing lies as we speak. He's literally just spewing nonsense about what's going on, about what Trump says, about how he wants to kill people, if he wants to do this. And so all this stuff going on here. So in the midst of the rage and the chaos and all these things, we have such a beautiful moment here. I mean, it's something that is just so ironic. Taking a look here at the polling, looking at this here from the New York Post, this is by far probably one of the most telling moments of the election in these results, right? A lot of it, you know, obviously white straight men are going to be blamed for all this, you know, white women who voted with their husbands, all these things, right? But the one thing that was shocking to see was the way in which Trump was able to shift a demographic group that from this point up until this point had been primarily held by the Democrats, and that is Hispanic and Black voters. So looking here from the New York Post, it reads, Hispanic men supported Trump on election day over vice president by a stunning 10-point margin. According to an NBC exit poll, the former president received 54% support from Hispanic men compared to Harris's 44% backing. By comparison, Joe Biden won the Latino male vote by a 23-point margin in the 2020 contest, which was 59-36. So Trump literally was able to flip that. The vice president received 62% from Latinas, so Mexican females, down from Biden's original number of 69. Harris's 25-point edge over Trump with Hispanic female was notably lower than Biden's 39-point edge in 2020. Overall, Trump won 45% of the Hispanic voters compared to Harris's 53% share, according to an exit poll by Edison. So that's the Hispanic vote. Moving on here to the inroads with the Black voters that he made. The 45th president, now the 47th president, made inroads with Black voters, gains that were readily apparent in the swing state exit polling. In the state of Wisconsin, Trump more than doubled his support among the Black voters compared to 2020. And the GOP nominee received about 20% of the Black vote in the Badger State, far less than the 78% that Harris received, but a substantial improvement over last cycle. In 2020, Trump only won 8% of the Black vote in Wisconsin, and now he's won 20%, so it's a major shift there. In Georgia, Harris racked in 83% of the Black vote, less than 91% of the support that Joe Biden received. So Joe Biden in 2020 received 91, Harris received 83, and this is just a trend you'll see all throughout the entire thing. Kamala Harris constantly polled and performed poorer than Biden. So you got to imagine, Joe Biden is out there somewhere, the happiest man alive. He literally gets to go to his grave saying that they should have chose him and that he would have made a better candidate. So good for him. 73% of Black men in Georgia backed Harris compared to 25% for Trump, a marked decline from the 87% of Black men that supported Biden. So she dropped off there. She had 73%, Biden had 83%. That's a marked 14-point drop for Kamala Harris amongst Black men. Harris was also running behind Biden with Black women in the Peach State, receiving 89% of the vote from that demographic compared to President Biden's 95% backing 4 years ago. Fox exit polls showed a similar trend in North Carolina, where Trump won about 21% and 11% of the 20% of Black men and 11% of the overall Black vote in the swing state. Trump only received 6 and 5% from Black men and Black voters overall in North Carolina in 2020. In Pennsylvania, this trend was also apparent. Biden received 94% of the Black vote in the Keystone State compared to Trump's 5%. However, this time around, Trump allotted a 17% overall and 23% among black men in Pennsylvania. So with that being said, we'll transition here to this clip from MSNBC. So what's their response to these numbers, right? What is the reasonable analysis of this? Well, according to MSNBC, the reasonable analysis is that these men just must be racist. So let's take a look here from MSNBC and see what their response is to these demographic shifts.
I just say really quickly, too, Democrats need to be mature and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of,
with other Hispanics. You've got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've got to have real honest conversations about it.
Honest conversations.
You know, this first stage of grief, they say, is denial. And so I think we're seeing that here. I think they're experiencing that first stage in denial, not being able to rap with the facts. You know, speaking as someone who has Hispanic family, who has, you know, connections with Hispanic people, have a Hispanic background myself, you know, the reality must be said. I think they made a great point there. You can't just lump all Hispanics in the same group. Okay, you got to understand that. Same way you can't lump all white people in the same group. And this is the beauty of what's happening. This is the beauty of what Trump was able to accomplish here in this election. And I think, you know, making a little allusion to what we'll get to in a bit about the future of this country, this is a good sign for the country. The fact that the legacy media and the Democratic Party and the leftists no longer have a hold on these groups simply by playing racial politics and identity politics is good. Okay, we need to be able to get to a point where it's not about the color of your skin, it's not about your identity, it's about the policy. And that's what these people can't come to grips with, is the fact that there are Hispanics who can't stand that the border's open. Those Hispanics who came here legally, they went through the port of entry, they worked their tails off, they work hard, They did their duty. They became citizens the right way, which is a good thing for America when people do that. And they come here, they love America, they do great things. You know, my ancestors, that's my history. But for those people to be disrespected by allowing Hispanic people to just come into the country willy-nilly, not have to work for it, they come in, they can work, they get benefits, social care, all these things. When you have a Hispanic person whose family came here legally, they're doing the right thing, and let's say they become wealthy, let's say they have their own business, a lot of Hispanic people do. What happens to them? They get punished for it through taxes. They don't get those benefits. They don't get those things. So why would you assume that that Hispanic person is okay with that policy? And that's what they're not seeing here. They are completely ignorant and blind to this fact. And I think that black men don't care about violence, crime, that they don't care about policies, about drug epidemic, about anything of this sort, and that they're just sexist. It's disrespectful and it's so disdainful of the American people and of these minority groups to think that they just had to be sexist because they couldn't possibly care enough for policy. You know, black men are in some of the most dangerous positions in some of these inner cities where you have black on black violence. black gangs, black things like that. Men care about those things. Men don't want to be involved in those things, and they want to live in a safer environment. I know that there are black men out there who want that, and they desire that, and they want someone who's going to bring those policies. They don't just want someone who doesn't care and is a fake, tough on crime political candidate. And so on that note, we'll look here. We'll transition here. We'll give MSNBC a break. We'll go to the next best thing, the intelligentsia over at The View. Okay, I know you guys have been waiting for this. This is what I've been waiting for to hop into. So let's take a look here. This is Sunny Hostin making a similar claim along the lines of Morning Joe there. And this is just showing you their complete ignorance to the facts of reality. Sunny Hostin gives a diagnosis for why Kamala Harris lost. And here's her take.
I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. Mm-hmm. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country.
So there you have it. It has nothing to do with policy. It's all racism. Racism. Even though Trump made inroads with these demographics, it's racism. It has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with policy. You know, I hope and pray that these people continue to be this ignorant. Okay, please, 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 please continue to be this ignorant, and you will never win again, because the American people are shifting. The American people are waking up to the reality that you guys are hacks, that you guys are worthless in bringing information to them. And so because of that, they are moving on to better sources of information like podcast, like Daily Wire, like other conservative medias, getting their information in other places, because you guys, all you do is just trash on them. You don't actually hear their concerns. Instead of acknowledging the fact that the policy is bad and acknowledging that, hey, maybe we do need to change and give them actually a good candidate and have a primary and care about them, you just crap on them. And you think that that's a recipe for success. So I just hope that they keep doing that. I hope that they keep doing that. So here's another clip from The View. And here's them talking about, just opening up and talking about their general feelings about the election and how it went. So let's take a look at that.
So, how you feel? I'll start. Yeah, go ahead. My takeaway is that the system works. We live in a democracy. Mm-hmm. People spoke. This is what people wanted. I vehemently disagree with the decision that Americans made, but I feel very, very hopeful that we have a democratic system in this country. We should value it. We should love it. We should protest if the situation arises that we need to protest, which I'm sure it will. And I've been through this before with Nixon. It's been very difficult. But boy, oh boy, do we have a country if we can keep it.
Yeah.
So there's Joy Behar making, some concessions there and actually acknowledging reality for a second. Now, I don't think the same can be said for everybody at The View. So here's Sunny Hostin again. Like I said, probably the most intelligent one on the whole panel. Spewing nonsense again. Here she is talking about her feelings and how she's scared that her daughter is now going to be persecuted, and how her family's going to be come after, and how black people are going to be Jim Crow's coming back. So here's this completely detached from reality perspective that she gives. Let's take a look.
It was pretty red last night.
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States. I think that going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country, because I remember applying for my jobs as a federal prosecutor, and there was a box for convicted felons.
Well,
and so that box better be taken off. And I think our healthcare system is now at risk. I think
no fluoride for anyone.
Yeah, economists have made.
So we'll go ahead and stop there. Totally unhinged. Like I said, totally detached from reality. She made the point there. We have seen a Trump presidency. Did anybody lose their civil rights? Are black people drinking from the black water fountains? It is just so detached from reality. It's so out of line and out of step with the real world that we live in. And so this is what they get. Now I want to play... I want to do a few things here. There's a few things we'll do here, and then we'll talk about the future of our nation here and what it looks like for us. I'm just enjoying scrolling through Twitter and seeing the meltdowns and just relishing it. We'll do a few last ones here, and then we'll actually end on a kind of a good note, surprisingly, from CNN. So, next clip here that we'll look at is from, here it is, hold on, pulling it up here. So this is the next clip here I wanted to play, and I think this just goes to show exactly, like I said, how detached from reality the Democratic Party is, the leftist media. So this is by far one of my favorite clips of the night, coming from CNN, and here it is. This is them, Jake Tapper and a pollster, looking at the map. Let's take a look at it.
So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
So what you just saw there, and if you're not able to see, I'll do my best to describe it. Jake Tapper and the pollster were there. Jake Tapper asked, is there a single county in the United States in which Kamala Harris outperformed Joe Biden in 2020? The pollster then clicks on the screen. You see the poll, it pop up completely blank. Not a single area in the United States where Kamala Harris overperformed Joe Biden. So, like I said, you got to be Joe Biden. You got to be just the happiest man on earth. This guy's got to be happier than a kid at Disneyland. Like, I know he woke up this morning and he is just over the moon with joy. And so, looking at that, like I said, it just was so detached from reality. Everything from the very beginning was just so detached from reality. The idea that Kamala Harris could simply take the nomination from Joe, having no prior record of success, come in just because she's this coalition woman, she's black, she's a black Native American or black Indian woman, and that it checks all the boxes. Her policies don't matter because we have our coalition, and they're just going to vote for her because they're also black and they're also minority groups. Like I said, it was completely detached from reality from the get-go. And so that poll right there is by far one of the best clips. It just goes to show when you run bad candidates, they perform poorly. End of story. It doesn't matter how good your political machine is. Our democracy works well. Our democracy is strong. And I would label this the revenge of the normals. The revenge of the working class people has come back. They felt spat on, and they came back and they hit hard. And so we'll look here. I want to read this to you guys real quick. So I'm going to pull up the screen here. This is on Twitter. Okay. We're going to pull up this so you guys can see it. So Tay Trouble. So we'll take a look here. We'll just read through this and we'll just kind of get a general impression here. So we'll read this. I had my husband make us up go bags weeks ago. I hoped, manifest, wished every day that we'd never have to use them. But here we are. It's happened. I'm just completely numb. I thought I'd be a mess right now, but nothing. I haven't even cried. My husband, on the other hand, is wailing, screaming, banging his head off the kitchen cabinets. He has a history of self-harm, and I'm terrified he's about to relapse. Our daughters are crying and asking if they're safe. And we had to compose ourselves and tell them that no, they're not. We're not, as a family. Our lives here in the city are over. We both lived here since birth, multiple generations of family born here, but we can't and won't let our trans daughters be taken from us. And that's exactly what's about to happen under a Trump-Vance presidency. As residents in deep, deep red state, I need to cry, but I just can't. I feel like I'm living in the nightmare. Looking at some of the comments here, it says, I feel bad for those girls growing up without a father. They have multiple trans kids, and the dad is banging his head off the cabinets. What a freak show. Those poor kids deserve so much better. That family, it's a family of very damaged genetics. It's easy to laugh, but it's sad they're doing that to their children. Facts. That is very true. They told their kids they're not safe. What the hell kind of parents are they? Yep. So transitioning back here. This is just insanity. We know what Trump will do. We know exactly what his presidency looks like, but there are people out there who do buy what has been sold to you. They do buy the left-wing propaganda adage that has been shown over and over and over again. And these are left-wing Looney Tunes. And so, honestly, I think it's a great thing. Go ahead, pack up, go where you need to go, do what you need to do, up and go bags, all that great stuff. I encourage it. That's amazing. Leave the red areas, let them be, and move to California or somewhere where you will have those rights. No big deal to us. Just go ahead, do what you need to do. We're perfectly okay with that. So ending here, last clip, before we get into why Kamala Harris lost, well, we already know why she lost, right? Obviously, they're detached from reality. We've touched on a lot of those things here tonight. On why they lost. But over at CNN, surprisingly, there was actually a moment, and we'll end with this as we end up and wrap up our podcast here, talking about what the future looks like. I think this is the greatest clip right here that can really summarize, and this is actually a touch of reason and reality. So I'm really hoping, one can hope that the Democratic Party gets hit so hard that this is just such a reality check that after they're done of their stage of denial and grief, once they come out of that they will enter a point of realizing and actually analyzing their mistakes and realizing where they went wrong. And so we actually had a little bit of that last night on CNN. So let's take a look at this clip of the CNN panel discussing this and actually having some sense of reality about what happened. So here it is.
This is a mandate. Has won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
Couldn't have put it better. This, in summary, was the revenge of the average Americans. You know, when it comes to these major issues and these things, Kamala Harris wasn't serious. She was not a serious candidate. She didn't take the American people seriously. She didn't give them the time of day to actually explain her policies. She disrespected them. And she made them think that she could just win them over with free money, throwing money out, with offering them money and just telling them that the vibes are good and that she was going to do this, this, and this without actually going into the details, telling them she's going to fix the economy without actually ever explaining her actual policy. Just opportunity economy. The opportunities will be endless. It was just unbearable. And the American people began to realize that. And so this was the revenge of the average Americans. And it is a mandate. And that's a perfect segue into how we're going to end this. Donald Trump has been mandated by the American people, majority of the American people, the first time since 2004. He has won the majority vote and the electoral college. This is a shift in the demographic and of the makeup of America. This is a kick in the teeth of the legacy media. They have no power anymore. We, the American people, are taking the power back, and we are claiming it for ourselves, and we're saying enough with the narratives, enough with the identity politics. We want real change, and we want to be in touch with reality, and that is what is happening. And so in this shift, Trump does have a mandate, and that's what the future looks like here. If we are able to secure the House and have the Senate, the House, conservative-leaning Supreme Court, that will be a goal. We need to fix the economy. We need to shut down the borders. Remain in Mexico goes into place day one. Day one, Remain in Mexico comes back. Trump realigns himself with the Middle East. Hopefully the Abraham Accords can be signed. Peace can be restored. Israel can be unleashed to end the reign of terrorism of Iran. Iran can be broke again. China needs to be tariffed. They need to be shut down as an evil player and as an enemy of the United States. All those things need to take place, and Donald Trump will be the person to do them, and he'll take the American people seriously, and I think that's what we're seeing. Donald Trump was able to level with the American people, take them seriously, and say that he hears their needs and their wants, and I pray over Donald Trump's presidency, and I hope that we are able to deliver for the people because they deserve it. The working class of America deserve to be able to fill up their gas tanks. They deserve to be able to buy their kids nice things, to be able to feed their families. The American people deserve these things. They work hard. They are damn good workers, and they deserve it. And so that is the future of this country, hopefully. The future of America, it looks bright. It looks hopeful. It looks like a country where we can finally put the identity politics behind us. We can leave behind and bankrupt the legacy media by offering new platforms such as this, the Daily Wire, and other podcasts, and giving the opportunity for people to have the freedom of information. Anytime you hear the legacy media say misinformation, what it really means is free information. Information that is free from the grips of their ideologies, free from their political motivations, free from their plans to coerce you into doing their bidding. It is an opportunity to do with that information what we need. And that is what liberalism meant back in the day. That's what liberal arts used to be. So we have a big challenge on our hands as conservatives moving forward. The fight is not over. There is still a lot of work to be done. For example, in my state, I'm very saddened to say that in multiple states across the country, we experienced the fight for the pro-life movement take a back seat. Looking even here in Arizona, I'll pull it up really quickly here. Here in Arizona, Prop 139, 61% of Arizonians made it a constitutional right to have an abortion in Arizona. And that deeply, deeply hurts me as an Arizona resident. And so, there is work to be done. And I guess my last message that I'll leave this episode with is I'm very encouraged about the future. I'm very hopeful for it. I hope and pray Donald Trump does all the things that he said he was going to do. And I know that the second time around, now that he has the experience, I know that he can deliver. And I trust him to do that. But us, as everyday conservatives, what are you conserving? What are you doing to push the needle? It's not enough to just elect Donald Trump president. Okay, you have to actually live a life that is reflecting conservative values. You have to live a life that seeks to conserve the tradition of purity, of holiness, of righteousness before God. You have to live a personal life that is in step and in line with hard work, dignity, with righteousness, with prayer, with an attitude towards God that is humble. And so I'm grateful. I prayed to God before the election. I asked him for these results. I asked him to make this change and to help us in this. But at the end of the day, we need to also take responsibility and accountability as individual Americans, and we need to fight the good fight. We need to fight against wickedness, fight against murders, violence, evil, fight against abortion, and the evil of murdering babies. We need to do all these things, not just because we're seeking a political win, not just because we want attention, fame, anything like that, because it's the right thing to do. And you have to live your life that way. At the end of the day, what will change America for the better is a cultural shift. It is not Donald Trump. It is not the Republicans in the Senate. It is not the Republicans in the House. It is everyday Americans going back to church, reading their Bibles, praying to God, getting on their knees and humbling themselves before the Almighty and returning back to the same values that created this country. And that's the problem with the Democrats and the leftist media. They want to leave those values. They want to abandon God. They want God out of the institutions. They want God out of the Constitution. But you don't get here without God. God founded this country in humility with men who honored him, who glorified him, and who gave their lives in many ways for the cause of freedom. And so we need to protect our rights. We need to stand up for the Constitution and for the God that created this great nation and founded this great nation through great men who he used as vessels and tools to have such an amazing country where we have the freedoms where we have churches on every street corner, where we're able to have discourse and debate publicly. And we need to preserve those things and fight for those things. And we need to live our lives in a way that is honoring and glorifying to him and is charitable and respectable and loving towards our neighbors. And so with all that being said, I'm very much looking forward to the future. We are going to continue to bring you the latest. We're going to continue to combat and fight the good fight. It is not over. There is so much to be done. There are millions of babies still whose lives are on the line every year. And there's a lot of change that needs to take place. And so us here at Principal Politics, we're going to continue to fight that fight. And we hope that you can join us. So thank you for watching and or listening. That'll do it for our show today. Congratulations, Donald Trump, on your victory. Congratulations to all the Republicans who also won their races. Let's make America holy again, and let's make it great again. Thank you.